to?
Excellent, yes. So yeah, I'm a PhD student here at Christchurch. My thesis regards Christian socialism, so it's a little bit from that, but I am associated with INCISE, so that allows me to keep up this critical theory research. For today, I want to mark the significance of today. I wanted to take this session in the spirit of awareness. And for me, that is important for two reasons. The first of which, I don't claim to be an authority on intersex politics, either through my research or for any lived experience. I don't fashion myself as being a spokesperson for the community either. The second is echoed through this quotation at the training day from Holly Greenberry, who was a co-founder of Intersex UK. Not to do it with us, do it with us, don't do it for us. So I wanted to structure my presentation today around essentially as a report from the training day I attended on the 28th of March of this year. So my awareness of intersex rights was deeply inspired by this training day. So this is the panel for the training day. Professor Surya Monroe of the University of Huddersfield, who is on I believe a 2-year research project of this title, Intersex DSD, which stands for Disorders of Sexual Development, Human Rights, Citizenship and Democracy Project. The acronym DSD is actually disputed by, within their own research, one of the pamphlets they gave out to us, they disputed this term, as does Youkai, who are an organisation that I'll talk about a little bit later in this presentation. The suggested alternative to DSD would be VSD, which is Variants of Sexual Disorder. The problem, obviously, disorder development, sorry. The problem with the word disorder, obviously it stigmatises and it problematises the words. Let's talk about Holly Greenberry's research with the co-founder of Intersex UK. I want to talk a little bit later about another member of the panel, Jo Holliday, who's an author of a fantastic book called She's a Boy, The Shocking True Story of Jo Holliday. Of Youkai, Dr. J. Hayes Light, the director of Youkai, and someone who I can only find out their first name is Paul, a very friendly chap who came along from XXY Talk, a forum for people with that chromosome structure. Now, what is intersex? Often before I define anything, I like to have input from the UN. So helpfully, there's a brief video from the UN who are starting to work alongside intersex awareness groups to sort of tackle this awareness issue. Interesting, we'll watch that. Okay, so some of the behind me are some attempts at describing what having intersex traits might look like. Then I'm going to read out some of my favourite definitions, or approaches rather. So it's generally considered to be an umbrella term describing individuals born with so-called ambiguous or indistinct sex variations, which are made up of external anatomy, internal reproductive organs, hormone levels, or even the DNA. Second approach that I've noticed is that individuals that do not easily fit into the assumed definitions of male or female bodies. Now, my favourite approach to this comes from Intersex Society of North America, the definition. It's on their website. It's very easy to access, it's .org. And I'd just like to read that to you quickly. And I think the reason why it's my favourite is it starts off with intersex is a socially constructed category that reflects real biological variation. I like the fact that instantly it's tackling held predispositions. So, nature presents us with sex anatomy spectrums, breasts, penises, clitorises, scrotums, labia, gonads. All of these vary in size and shape and morphology. So-called sex chromosomes can vary quite a bit too. But in human cultures, sex categories get simplified into male, female, and sometimes intersex, in order to simplify social interactions, express what we know and feel, and maintain order. So nature doesn't decide where the category of male ends and the category of intersex begins, or where the category of intersex ends and the category of female begins. Humans today, typically doctors, decide how small a penis has to be, or how unusual a combination of parts has to be before it counts as intersex. Humans decide whether a person with XXY chromosomes or X chromosomes and androgen insensitivity will count as intersex. Also, I feel like I should add, as we are talking in spirit of the training day, a definition of the University of Huddersfield's research approach was also provided, which is probably useful just to disseminate as well. Intersex is an umbrella term that encompasses various physical variations in the components of the parts of the body we consider gendered or sexed, primarily chromosomes, genetic markers, gonads, hormones, reproductive organs, genitals, and secondary sex characteristics such as facial hair or muscle mass. Despite the fact that these variations generally do not threaten the physical health of the individual, there are correlated health problems only in certain circumstances. People with these biological variations are often subjected to involuntary, unnecessary surgery and other medical treatment. Up to 2% of the population may be born with invisible or visible intersex traits, and between 0.1% and 0.05% are detected and subject to medical attention. So, there are around 46, I believe, or a little under 50 so-called intersex traits. ISNA, the organisation I referred to before, these are some of the more, I don't know if common is the right word, but these are some of the traits that they recognise and describe on their website. So I just really quickly wanted to show you that the resources that they have available on their website. So all the ones that I've listed on that slide are here, easy access on their website. And if you wanted to find more information about any of the conditions, you simply click on one of the links, brief description of what it is. And you can sort of toggle your way through those. One of the important things perhaps is to talk about what intersex is not. And this part comes directly from notes that I had on the training day. So one of the things that was really stressed to us was that intersex is not a gender label. A fundamental point of the training day was that intersex was not a form of gender categorisation, nor more obviously a form of sexuality. Intersex is a biological dimension of sex. Therefore, one of the central tenets of intersex politics is that variation and biological difference is a fundamentally natural trait. In fact, biological traits consistent with the label intersex are ostensibly more common than necessarily perceived. One of the things that Holly remarked on in her lecture is that the chromosome structure XXY is more common than what you may assume it to be, or one may assume it to be. It's not, although these struggles have been compared to transgenderism, it's not the same thing. not the same phenomena. The two differentiations that Holly made in her speech was that intersex refers to biological characteristics, whilst transgenderism is often about a question of identity. While it's also important to point out that someone with intersex traits could identify as transgender. The second point they made was, Holly made, is that it is intersex individuals are often subjected to unwanted or even unconsensual surgery, whereas transgender surgeries tend to be wanted. One of the important things about differentiating and bringing awareness to intersex is that, I don't know, it's got cut off down the bottom here, but this was the longest sort of LGBT acronym that I'm aware of. Intersex struggles has constantly, it's sort of overshadowed by some of the other issues. Sorry, if it is cut off, I'll just read. LGBTQQIAAPK. Are we familiar with any of those words? Did anyone have a try and jump through them?
I can get up to I.
You can get up to I. Do you want us to?
Yeah, I can get up to A. Well, yeah.
Do you want to get us up to A then?
Lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual.
The P is pansexual.
Pansexual.
There are a couple of different A words, as it were, but the one that I'm aware of in this one is ally. So someone who is allied to the struggle. K is kink.
In North America, you often see a 2 for two-spirit.
You do, yes, that's true.
But there's also a couple of others.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So, also, a word that I've, certainly in my younger days, was more aware of, and one of the questions that came up at the training day, and also something whenever I talk to some of my friends about intersex issues, is they ask, is that hermaphrodite, or intersex hermaphrodites? So, they're not. So, what does hermaphrodite mean? Hermaphrodite denotes a creature with both, or organism, with both male and female genitals, as well as androgynous secondary sex characteristics. The Intersex Society of North America assert that the implication that a human can be fully male and fully female is a physiologic impossibility. Hermaphrodite is now reasonably widely regarded as being misleading and a derogatory term. It stems from Greek mythology, but
biologically inept, I think.
Yes. So we distance ourselves from the word hermaphrodite. One of the things that was actually surprising to me, which may have demonstrated some of my ignorance on the issue, was that at least the panel expressed that it wasn't. A lot of the surgeries and a lot of the lifestyle choices made for these individuals, they do not put down, they do not blame their parents. In fact, the claim at the training day session was that in many instances of unwanted surgeries on intersex individuals, it was medical personnel whom felt the need to put unnecessary pressure on the parents of intersex children in order that children conform to the medical conception of normality. So the most common example of this would be if a medical practitioner highlights to the parents that these intersex traits are medical conditions or defects or even disorders. And then one of the quotes, which I believe was from Holly Greenbury, co-founder of Intersex UK, was, what parent would not want their child to be fixed? If you're told your child is broken by a medical practitioner, then that almost makes a choice for you, doesn't it? This merely becomes a matter of cut first and talk later. And to pick up on that, intersex is not about being broken, it's not about needing to be fixed, it's not about a disorder, it's just a variation of being human. So for the panel, what had been performed on them and the wider intersex community at birth and throughout their lives was a form of human experimentation. This is because, as far as they were concerned, Their surgeries were unnecessary and often to the contrary of whom they were as individuals. A majority of reassignment operations performed on intersex individuals are extremely invasive, painful, lead to long-term discomfort, not consented to by the individuals themselves, and many of them are irreversible. So I also want to highlight that it's not a short-term condition. This isn't something that is, let's say, solved at birth. It's something that this person has to live through for the rest of their life. And as touched on before, I think it was a 1.7% from that UN video. It's not particularly uncommon. It's not as rare or uncommon as as I had thought. Okay, so at this stage, I wanted to draw attention to some organisations which are sort of better placed than I, perhaps. And also, if you wanted to conduct your own research after this, I figured in generating awareness, putting these organisations into your consciousness was a good idea. So, Intersex UK is a non-profit organisation which was founded in 2011 in order to support intersex human rights throughout the UK and on an international scale. The organisation also holds the accolade of being the first intersex NGO non-government organisation. I tried to find information on their website, but it seemed to be down at the moment or something, but these are the principles that from the talk that Holly gave in her lecture, which I picked up, and I think these would make a good set of ground principles for Intersex UK. So Intersex UK has tasked itself with ending medicalisation and traumatic surgery. It's aimed itself at tackling stigma and shame, which silences. Intersex UK asserts that all biologies are on the spectrum. Intersex UK aims to enable intersex individuals to take hold of their own experience and claim their identity. One of the final points was advocacy is important. The way in which Intersex UK sort of got off the ground, got started, was through a variety of media campaigns, which has gained support from members of the House of Lords, actually, television personalities such as Stephen Fry, and also I was hoping that this talk, perhaps in some way, hopefully, identifies at least solidarity with the intersex cause. Although, as I'm not often widely regarded as a national treasure, I figured in some circles I am. You ask my mother. But Stephen Fry is. So Intersex UK, I managed to hunt down this video of a previous Intersex Awareness Day, a video created by Intersex UK that was played to us at the training day. And here are the words of Stephen Fry.
Hello, my name is Stephen Fry and I support the rights of intersex people. It's a subject that I think you could regard as maybe the next frontier. In a moral crusade for dignity and rights of people who've been overlooked, in our culture at least, for many, many hundreds of years, but who have existed throughout human history and have been accepted in many past cultures and understood and valued. And I think it's time they were in our culture too. Please do everything you can to help share the news of Intersex Awareness Day and do everything you can to tell your friends and to find out more about this compelling, beguiling and exciting subject and help all you can people who need our help. Thank you very much.
along the lines of advocacy is important, it's just struck me that maybe it would be of interest to know that at the training day, one of my fellow companies there was actually Natalie Bennett, who's the former leader of the Green Party. So it's interesting to see how political parties are at least starting to acknowledge, political parties in the UK at least, are starting to acknowledge these struggles of those that have been socially minoritised and to an extent denaturalised. So along those lines, Intersex UK, far from actually demanding that there be new UK legislation brought in, what they would rather, or what my impression was that existing articles, existing organisations and treaties be acknowledged and respected within the UK. My note-taking skills were not so fast. These were the ones I managed to get down very quickly. As you can see, organisations such as the European Union, the United Nations, the World Health Organization, these are institutions that are at least in some way starting to recognise the rights of intersex individuals, and it's up to the UK constituents to put pressure on their representatives in order to start recognising some of these existing treaties about the rights of the child, about non-invasive surgery, about all of the above really. Okay, so the second organisation I want to talk about, which was represented at the panel by Dr. J. Hayes Light, was quite a large organisation, the UK Intersex Association, or Youkai. I think Youkai. Yeah, we'll go Youkai. Which is on their website, they describe themselves as having the approach of education, advocacy, campaigning, and a support organisation which works on behalf of intersex people. Now, these aims were taken from their website as well. So their aims are to educate, inform, and campaign in order to remove the shame, secrecy, social prejudice, ignorance, and stigmatisation which surround intersex people, to campaign against the pathologising and medicalisation of intersex people's lives, to campaign against the use of surgery and other medical treatments for coercing intersex people to physically conform to cultural definitions of normal, to campaign against the widespread practice of withholding information from intersex people regarding the medical implications of being born intersex where these exist, to campaign for the same status and respect for human rights accorded to all others to be equally accorded to intersex people. A really good link, again it's easily found on Youkai's website, ukia.co.uk, are some recommended papers and readings, and this Variations of Sexual Development. Remember right at the beginning I had to talk about how DSD, we're trying to change it to VSD, and this is one of the leading papers on that, available there. Myth of Normality, Management of Intersexuality. Yeah, there's just quite a few resources there to be going through. So I recommend, if you have time in your own time, that you go and do that. A third project, which wasn't so widely represented there, but I sort of touched upon it a little bit earlier when I mentioned House of Lords have taken this into account. In particular, well, the Labour peer, Lord Wilf Stevenson, who is part of the Interface Project, where one of their main campaign goals is to have the same-sex marriage bill sort of apply or incorporate those who are undecided or have not declared their sex yet. I think it's up to Lord Wilf Stevenson to introduce himself, so I have a brief video of him doing so.
My name is Wilf Stevenson. I'm with the House of Lords in the United Kingdom, and I have a wide interest in various aspects of legislation, which are business but also culture. But my reason for being interviewed today is because I have asperger's, and I've had since I was born. It's a condition that's probably mainly genetic, although it seems to be increasing in incidence, and we don't know why that is. So at the moment, in the United Kingdom, probably about 1 in 150 boys are born with this condition, which also affects girls too, but it's less obvious and less noticeable. I didn't know I had the condition until I was speaking to a doctor when I was about age 30. So the whole of my adolescence and early adulthood, I had to conceal a difference, the fact that I wasn't the same as others, that I felt very difficult about that. And it was only when I was about 30, 35 I realised that I was not alone, that there were others in the same condition, that it was becoming well recognised that those people with hypospadias had difficulty in forming relationships, had difficulty making friendships, had difficulty in engaging with the normal normality and normal conditions of life. So I, for instance, found it very difficult to get undressed in a public changing room. I didn't want to do sport in case I was exposed in that way, and all that sort of stuff. So a really difficult time. You have a saying which is on your visiting cards, and I was struck by nobody is shameful. That reminded me that my mother used to say that to me when I was growing up. And the way she expressed this was that there is nothing to be ashamed of the human body. And of course that's true, but there's an irony in it, because she knew I had hypospadias because my grandfather brought me into the world, and there must have been discussions about what happened. She never discussed that, never until she's now dead, so we can't have that conversation. But I wish she had put into practice what she said. There is a role for legislation in this area, particularly, for instance, for those who've been involved in intersex, where I think that medical advances are not been supported by legislative change. So, for instance, in debating the same-sex marriage bill, there wasn't the space for those who had yet to declare which sex they wished to be considered. And therefore, we do need to revisit this and think this through in participation with those people who have got the condition, so we can't neglect the solution. Problems that I've experienced, I think, are lack of knowledge, and in particular lack of information from your parents. So if I have any message for parents, it is to tell your children about what the condition is, to talk to them about it, to explain what the issues are, and to take the journey with them as they were going through various medical investigations and stuff. But also make sure that the child has a right to express his, or in some cases her, interests here. At age 1 or 2, the child cannot be involved. But as they get older and they understand what the situation is, then they should be involved and should be encouraged to be so. And my message to the medical profession is that there is a tendency, certainly in the United Kingdom, to operate first and to consider how that operation has affected people later. I think that's wrong. I think we need to spend a lot more time discussing with the patient, and that means the child, what will happen as a result of the operation, and involve them in the process, because that's the only way that justice is involved.
So that was the Interface Project, a third campaign that is worth becoming acquainted with. Final one was well, this is actually XXY Talk is more of a support forum online. The representative on the panel was called Paul. His intersex trait is called Klinefelter syndrome. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The chromosome formation is expressed in one of two ways, XXY or 47XXY. Essentially, I believe I'm right in saying this is more commonly for males, and it's when a male body has 2 or more X chromosomes in it, so XXY, and it could also be XXXY. The symptoms of this are described as being subtle, and actually perhaps not too many people might know that they have this trait. Some of the more prominent features of XXY is that the males tend to be sterile and have small testicles. However, I'm not sure how small a testicle needs to be, but from the features. In terms of literature that I wanted to recommend, again, another member of the panel and a prominent intersex activist is Jo Holliday. Jo's book is ghostwritten by Louise Chapman. I should just quickly put her in there as well. Jo Holliday's book is basically a very good read, very compelling, and it's shocking basically that such an account could happen. I wanted Jo to be able to introduce himself, so I managed to find a YouTube clip of Jo just doing just that. So let's hear from Jo.
And this is my intersex story. I was born with local extrophy, which is a rare medical condition that left me with, among other issues, no external genitalia. I was assigned male at birth. However, after consultation at a different hospital, my parents were advised to raise me as female. And from the age of 1, I grew up as Joella. Throughout my childhood, I suffered with issues surrounding my identity and personal feelings of my gender until I was 25, when I discovered that I had male chromosomes and that I had internal male reproductive organs that were removed when I was a baby. From then on, I decided to live my life as Joel, the person who I had been born.
Yeah, so one of the first things I did after the return to my hotel room after this, after the panel, was try and track down a copy of Joe's book, and as you can probably tell, I can't recommend it enough if you are looking to research this area more thoroughly. Taking a step away from the training day, some of the more contemporary events today tend to cross over actually most prominently into the world of athletics or sport. I think many of you will be familiar with Caster Semenya, South African I think long distance or mid to long distance runner. 800 metres sounds long to me. Incredibly talented runner. You can see her accolades there. Gold medal in 2009, World Championship 2011. In 2012 she actually finished second and got the silver medal for the 800 metres. But the Russian athlete who came first was subject to the doping scandal and has since been stripped of her gold, which has allowed Caster to claim it. Now, the reason why I bring Caster Semenya up is in 2009, after she had achieved an incredible feat of winning a gold medal, I believe at the age of 18, incredible feat, the International Association of Athletics Federation, the IAAF, requested that Caster take a sex verification test. From my understanding, it was done quite underhanded. She was told that it was a routine drugs test, and it turned out they actually tested a sex verification test. From that test, it was found that she had what is regarded as being a high level of testosterone for a female body, which is a condition or a trait known as hyperandrogenism. Now, why this would be a problem is science is split on this actually. Many doping scandals involve testosterone, which is an anabolic steroid, which is believed to boost things like speed and strength. However, as many intersex campaigns would point out, there's no real evidence that increased level of testosterone would have such an effect on the female body. And my understanding of that is that female body will only be able to cope with a certain amount of testosterone, so the additional effects of extra testosterone wouldn't count. It's gone towards a testosterone rule change in 2015, which is, honestly, it's split into two positions how it's regarded. It's regarded in one sense as being controversial, and another sense as being about time. So for example, in male racing events, there's no maximum or minimum testosterone level for a male runner to have. So the question was, why would that be the case for female runners? The controversy is, it comes with two athletes spoke out about it straight away. Paula Radcliffe, who a marathon runner, she's commented on this, and she has since, I'm not sure if she's come back on her comments, but she has shown solidarity with Caster in her words since. But her comment was that it devalues a sport, which I I personally don't see. And another, straight after the race, the 2016 race, Lindsay Sharp, who's a British runner who finished sixth in that race, made comments to the camera straight after the race. Was accused of snubbing Castor, but again has shown solidarity with Castor after the event, saying that there were obvious athletes with heightened testosterone and that there are now being 2 separate races run within the same event. Castor's story, down the bottom here is a link. If you just go onto YouTube, type in this title, "Too Fast to Be a Woman, the story of Castor Semenya." It's about 40 minutes long. It's a really informative documentary that follows Castor around the time of the sex verification test, and it shows what an incredible strain this put on a talented and dedicated athlete who at times felt like giving up on their talent and the dedication. In this field, there is a crossover between sort of intersex and transgender rights here. For example, prominent fighter in MMA, mixed martial arts, there's a transgender woman called Fallon Fox, who some commentators have expressed that she might have an unfair advantage against female fighters. And their argument is that she lived as a male for 30 years, don't want to overage her, 30 years, and therefore things like bone density, muscle structure have gone through puberty and have developed in the way that a male body would, which is assumed to be stronger. So that's the controversy around that. One of the things to say I don't think I need to defend Castor as such, but one of the things to say, one of her coaches in this documentary pointed out that her personal best, which is an impressive 1 minute 55 seconds, took me 2 minutes to watch it, so that was quite impressive. It's about 2 seconds off the fastest female running time, so she's not running beyond the capabilities of women, so to speak. It's also about 15 seconds slower than the men's record, I think David Rashida currently holds. So to say that she has an unfair advantage is yet to be seen, yet to be evidenced anyway. Also in the world of athletics or sports, some of you may have seen recently I became aware of this on the local news. The launch on the 24th of August was the Charlton Athletic Community Trust Invicta FC, long title. They were formerly known as Bexley Invicta, and it is the first club trust affiliated LGBTQI+ friendly football team in the UK. They play in the London Unity League, which is made up of 9 teams that have a similar premise, underwriting thing. They have LGBT+ sports stars playing for them, but the Charlton Invicta are the only ones backed by a formal club. And this club is now entitled to the training grounds and other facilities that Charlton Athletic have available to them. Not that it's done them much good in recent years, but yeah. That's the end of my presentation. Happy to answer any questions. I figured that as it's Awareness Day, it might even be interesting if someone wanted to raise some discussion topics and a bit of a dialogue between us all. Thanks.